Ittner's on the line with us, our buddy who's the veteran war correspondent based in Kiev, Ukraine, host of the brilliant podcast On the Edge. You can find out all about it over at philipittner.com, philipittner.com, and Ittner Philip on Blue Sky and Twitter. Phil, welcome back to the program. How's life today in Kiev? I know you guys have been going through some really rough times with all the power failures.
Yeah, that's been the major issue for the last 10 days or so, maybe almost 2 weeks, since we had a real massive attack here that took out a lot of the electrical grid. We are getting regular blackouts. In contrast to prior years, it does seem to be a lot less scheduled and controlled. We are given by our the energy provider, a calendar saying you can expect in this 6-hour period of time that you may lose power. And then as you get closer and closer to that time, it might adjust, it might slide, it might shorten. It's much more unpredictable, it seems, than last year, for example, when you could reliably plan things out and say, okay, we're not going to have power here. We better not start a load of laundry or start a podcast or something, in my case. The Russians continue to assault Ukraine's electrical grid. We're getting some reports here, and it's still early days, that the Russians hit a series of power stations out in an oblast called Pokrovsk, which is out east, and it's distressing because it has deprived some 8 mines at last check, deep mines out in the east, in the Donbass area, in the Dnipropetrovsk area. And as we are speaking, it seems that there are hundreds, if not upwards of 2,500 miners who are stuck underground because the electricity that they need to run the lifts, the elevators that bring them to the surface, are not functioning.
Oh, geez.
They do have air supply. We are being told they have air and light that are being done by large generators that they've hauled in, but they have got to get enough sufficient electricity to run those lifts. Because obviously, 2,500 Ukrainian miners stuck underground during all of this is really distressing.
Yeah.
I have every faith, however, in the Ukrainian civil engineers and the guys. I've seen them do extraordinary things. So I'm not terribly, and the government doesn't seem to be terribly worried about their mortality, whether they're going to this is a fatal situation, life or death.
It's just going to be a tough one.
It's just going to be a tough one.
Yeah, that's real unfortunate. Tell me, I saw this headline: Russia close to biggest capture of Ukrainian cities since 2023. What's going on there?
It's a town called Pokrovsk. It is strategically very important. It is part of a network of what's called fortress cities that are these heavily industrialized cities that the Ukrainians have turned into, just impenetrable, defense line, this massive defense line. Because they turn the factories and the smelting plants and everything that's industrialized out there into a defense position. But it does look like the Russians are advancing on it, and that would be strategically very difficult. And yes, it would be one of the largest cities to be taken in quite some time. They fought over cities smaller than this for longer than they fought for Pokrovsk. So there's a lot of talk within the folks who monitor the armed forces of Ukraine that this is a strategic withdrawal, not quite the route that Moscow is painting it as, but to make no two bones about it, it's not good. Having said that, it is not so bad that it stopped President Volodymyr Zelensky from going out to the region, meeting with the military leadership, handing out some awards and some medals, as presidents are wont to do when they meet with soldiery. But he felt it was safe enough to go out towards, to get close to those front lines out near Pokrovsk. So it's not all doom and gloom. We do hear there's a counteroffensive going on, but the battle over Pokrovsk is not looking particularly good for the Ukrainians.
Meanwhile, I believe in the last week there was a major Ukrainian attack in or near Moscow.
They've been doing all sorts of intermittent attacks. I think you may be referring to there was an attack on a domestic petrol station, so a gasoline refinery point.
Yeah.
If we're talking about the same attack, that's the one I'm thinking, and that was particularly troublesome for Moscow, because that is a resource for the Russians themselves for domestic consumption of gasoline. So, the more Ukraine puts pressure on Russia's fossil fuel industry, both that's being kind of secreted out and breaking sanctions and being sold internationally, but they're having problems domestically. And when the temperatures drop in Russia, and as famously it gets below freezing there.
Yeah, been there.
Are you going to want to? Yeah, right, exactly. Do you want to be the Russian commuter who has to sit in line in frigid temperatures for goodness knows how long?
Yeah, no, I get it.
And that's the intent. That's the intent, to make the Russians feel some of the pain the Ukrainians have been feeling.
One of the things that I learned back in high school or college, long time ago, but I think is conventional wisdom, is that one of the upsides of wars, if you want to call it that, is that you get major technological advances during wartime. World War I, the first time that airplanes were actually used in combat, and it led to major changes in aviation. And also, mustard gas, which got outlawed ultimately. World War II, major innovations in electronics, in particular, communication stuff, as well as aviation. And
issued in the atomic age, nuclear weaponry.
Exactly. And so now I'm hearing that the war between Russia and Ukraine, or this war of aggression by Russia and Ukraine's defense of itself, is literally on the cusp of altering how pretty much every country in the world is thinking about and planning for future warfare, that drones and drone swarms, like China's now got this thing where they can deploy a 5,000 or 10,000 drone swarm at a time. 10,000 drones flying through the air, they can just take out, and each one is armed, or each one can be a suicide drone, and they can take out an entire battalion or dozens of them. That the nature of warfare is changing as the result of the strategies that have been employed and the new technologies that have been employed by the Ukrainians against the Russians principally, although the Russians now have this hypersonic glide missile as well. What are your thoughts on that, and how true is all that?
Oh, I think 100%, absolutely. This war is changing the nature of war and how future wars will be conducted. It's unreversible. It's irreversible now. It's drones in all factors of drones, land, sea, and air. If you can get a $1,500 or a $15,000 even dollar drone to take out a multi-million-dollar fighter jet on some tarmac somewhere, then that ratio is unsustainable. Obviously, there are massive advances being done in terms of AI, so that you have autonomous drones who could target, find and kill targets on their own.
Right, and that's how they're doing the drone swarms too.
That's right. And as a matter of fact, on the edge, about 3 weeks ago, we spoke to a young entrepreneur who is developing this stuff and is now starting to export it, because the drone war here in Ukraine has now moved so far beyond what they were producing, say, even a year ago, that those drones are now obsolete. So they're exporting them and selling them to others.
Yeah. So Phil, we're up against a time break here. We're going to hit the break in just a minute. But the other thing that I read, and this was in one of the defense publications that I subscribed to, was that the United States has been largely ignoring this, both in the last couple of years of the Biden administration and during the Trump administration, because the Department of Defense has been largely captured, and certainly the House and Senate have been captured by a handful of large defense companies that really make their money building tanks and submarines and rocket ships and stuff like that. And they don't want to get into this whole drone business. It's a whole new thing for them, and they're worried about competition from smaller companies. Is that true?
I think absolutely the United States is lagging behind significantly. There's an apocryphal story, I'll make it very quick, of a commander of a whole section of drones within the Ukrainian military, and he was visiting a U.S. base, an air base, and the commanding officer at the air base said to the Ukrainian, "What do you think about our defenses, given what you guys are going through?" And the drone commander said to the U.S. commander, "If you get me a battalion of my men within 12 kilometers of this highly secure U.S. airfield, there is nothing you could do to stop us from destroying it."
Wow.
We will overwhelm your defenses. You guys got to catch up. You got to realize it's no longer big ticket items.
And the Chinese are on this
numbers.
Like there's no tomorrow. And apparently the Russians have figured this out too. They're building drones like crazy now. In fact, they're using them to individually hunt Ukrainians. Do I have that right? They'll literally a drone will chase you down the street and shoot you?
Yeah, it's called a human safari, where Russian drone operators will purposely target civilians, and they will chase them through doorways. They will chase them. They will break windows, and another drone will fly in and attack you in your apartment. It's insidious, and yes, the Russians are at the forefront of it. The Chinese are making big advances, but do not discount the Ukrainians. Ukrainians are in. I only just this week visited a little mom and pop kind of entrepreneurial drone workshop, and there are dozens and dozens and dozens of these located dotted around the country. Amazing where you have teams of 7 to 10 making drones. So don't discount the Ukrainians.
Yeah, no, I got it, Phil. I got it. Hang on just a second.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's the great Phil Ittner, our veteran war correspondent based out of Kiev. Check out his podcast, On the Edge, philipittner.com. Phil, thanks so much.